Hi, everybody. I am Kathy from Sag Moraine, and I am joined again today by Lexi. Good.
Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
Lexi. Good to see you again.
Good to see you
And
too, Kathy.
and we are going to be talking again today about beautiful native ground covers. Uh, we did. We've talked about how well native plants can work as ground covers and to prevent weeds. Last talk, we talked about the short native ground covers that are less than a foot tall. And we're going to be talking about ones tonight that are 1 to 2 feet tall. Everybody's probably, we're well into the gardening season, and we're all kind of struggling with weeds here and there and get a little tired of hoeing or pulling weeds. And so we want to encourage some beautiful native ground covers that will cover the ground and prevent the need for weeding. So these are all going to be plants that by nature are uh, will spread either by seed, but mostly by rhizomes, to form a carpet that will block out seeds from dropping in and germinating, or they won't be able to germinate because there's no sun available because there's so much dense foliage. So we are going to be talking about ones tonight that are a little bit taller, 1 to 2 feet tall, and just a quick overview of some of the plants that we will be discussing tonight. Our Maidenhair Fern, Big Leaf Aster, Virginia Waterleaf, Canada Anemone, Golden Groundsel, Sensitive Fern, and basically these are going to be ripe for all different types of conditions. So whether you have a shady area, a sunny area, a dry area, a wet area, we're going to be hitting some plants that will be effective ground covers that will add beauty to your garden and really help prohibit weed growth. Few more: zigzag goldenrod, Solomon seal, mist flower, evening primrose, mayapple, marsh marigold. Lexi and I were just talking about this, how we love that plant. It's so pretty. And wild geranium. And I
Lots
do
of
want to
great
ask,
plants to
I
look at
know,
tonight.
awesome plants. And I do want to ask before we really get rolling into this, if you like the content that Sag Moraine brings you, please like this video and please subscribe to our channel so that our message and our resources get out to more and more people, and you'll know when we come out with a new video.
All right, so we have a quote here. We just want to talk about the height of ground covers because a lot of people think that, ground covers are just really, really short. But I just want to read this quote from Kim Eierman. Contrary to traditional thinking, ground covers don't have to be really short, nor do they have to have a strictly spreading habit. A robust reseeding plant can be just as effective as a spreading plant as live mulch. So we're thinking of these plants as green mulch, living mulch. They're going to, stop you from having to put the mulch down every year because they just take care of the ground that they're covering. And you can have some diversification in your height. So you might have some 1 to 2 feet tall ground covers, then you might have your shorter ones, and you can also do some taller ones, which we'll be covering in part 4 of this series, which will be in a week or so. So we just wanted to put that out there that there's definitely different aspects of for ground covers, and really the point just remains the same, that we want to try and fill in these areas and have plant matter versus having to do mulch every year.
And really, when you think of it, and we talked about this in the last presentation, to be a ground cover and to prevent weeds, a plant it can be 2 inches tall, it can be 2 feet tall. It just has to have dense enough foliage and be tightly packed enough so that it prohibits the sun from getting to any seed weed seeds that have fallen. So it can be, as long as it's dense, it can be any height. And as we said before, if it's right on your next to your patio, you might want a short little ground cover. But if it's in the back of your yard and you have an acre or two lot, you might want a taller one that you can see more from your seating area. So different plants for different situations.
All right, and two little housekeeping slides here. We just wanted to mention USDA plant hardiness stones. This is typically what people are most familiar with. So we are in zone 6A, but take a look at this map just to see what your hardiness zone is, and we'll be going over that for each of the plants that we're looking at today. And then one other thing we want to mention is our eco zones. So there's something called BONAP, and this is a different kind of mapping, and it shows the local ecosystems where these plants are native. So BONAP stands for Biota of North American Program. You can go to BONAP if you want to research a specific plant, but we've included these plants in our these maps in our presentation today for each of the plants to show you where they are native to, and we'll talk about that a little bit more.
And basically the ones that we really want to pay attention to are the dark green means that it is present in the state, but the light green color means it is present in the county and native in that county. So that the light green is really an indicator that this is a long-time generational native plant that evolved over many hundreds and thousands of years in that area.
And if you happen to be in one of those yellow areas, that means that the plant was present and rare, native in that county, but is very rare now. So you could make a huge difference by planting that plant again in that county.
Good point. Okay, the first one we're going to talk about is Maidenhair Fern. So if anybody has more of a shady woodland garden, this would be a lovely one for you to have under some of the trees and you know, just giving a blanket of green under the beautiful trees overhead. Maidenhair Fern gets 1 to 2 feet tall in medium to moist soil. Again, it likes full shade, blooms in June, July, August. So it does get some very discreet little blooms underneath the leaves, but it's not anything that you're really going to see. But I love ferns. They just look so prehistoric to me. It does spread by rhizomes, so it will make a beautiful carpet. And as you can see, the way these leaves, even though it's 1 to 2 feet tall, the way these leaves, you know, overlap each other, it's creating this blanket that would make it very difficult for any weeds underneath to really get any much water, but certainly any sunlight to be able to germinate and grow. It's hardy in zones 3 to 8, and it is native to the eastern US, as we're going to see on the BONAP map here. So again, if you're in the light green, you can see where it is native to. The dark green, you can see where it is present.
Beautiful fern. I have some of this growing under some ash trees in my garden, and it has these really cool black, like wiry stems, and it's just so elegant and beautiful.
It really is. I mean, it really is. It's like understated, but then when you see it in mass, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
Really, is there anything more beautiful than green? I mean, we love all of our flowering plants, but green is just so calm and soothing, greenery.
It really is. Now this is another one of my favorites, big leafed
You
aster.
guys are going to notice that Lexi says that a lot. She's
Yeah.
got a lot of favorites.
This one really, it does spread fast though. Like it is impressive. I cannot believe how much it's filled in just this year compared to last year. And this one really likes part shade to shade. It will lean into the sun too a little bit, so it can deal with some sunlight. Dry to medium soil. What really gets tall here is the stems with the flowers, so those will get 1 to 2 feet tall. And this is a late summer bloomer, blooming in August and September. You'll see tons of bees, native bees on this plant towards the end of the season. It spreads by rhizomes, and this is hardy in zones 3 to 7 and native to the northeastern U.S. So we can see that on our BONAP map.
So Lexi, since you have experience growing this one, big leaf aster, if somebody has a very aggressive weed problem that they're really struggling with, or if they have a very large yard or large area that they want to cover as quickly as possible, you would say that this is a pretty good one for somebody that has, you know, that they don't want to cover, you know, 6 feet. They want to cover, 40 feet, you would say that this would be a good one.
Oh yeah, I would just say plant it densely, pack it together as much as you can, like maybe, every 12 inches you place a plant with this one, and it's going to fill in great for you.
Wonderful.
So it's a larval host plant for the pearl crescent, which is a gorgeous butterfly. And it's just really amazing to think what these plants support. So this is what the caterpillar looks like. It's kind of a fuzzy looking one. So we start to identify the caterpillars, and then if we're lucky enough, we get to see the butterflies too. So who wouldn't want to see this one in their yard?
Look at the caterpillar. Look at the cute little eyes and like the nose in between those eyes, or that's what it appears to me. It may not be, but it looks like two little black eyes and then a brown nose sticking out, doesn't it?
He's got a personality, that's for sure.
I'm telling you. Okay, the next one is Virginia Waterleaf. So again, this is one that's going to do really well in a shady, wet area. So if you have a wet corner of your property that you want to fill in with some native plants to help our pollinators, but also cover and prevent those weeds from coming in and creating something unsightly or work for you, plant Virginia Waterleaf. It likes shade to part shade, gets 1 to 2 feet tall, blooms in May to June. That's so pretty. Looks so fresh. It spreads by self-seeding and by rhizomes, and it is native to the northeastern US. Oh, excuse me. And let's look at the map. So here we go. Virginia Waterleaf. Look at how pretty it looks. It just looks so, I don't know, it just looks so spring fresh over there, like on that forest floor. And so to do that in your yard under a stand of trees would just be so beautiful. And the foliage is very pretty too.
Very
And
elegant plant.
very elegant plant. And you can see some areas in yellow here where it once was, where it's native, but it's very rare now.
Okay, another favorite. Here's Canada anemone. This one can be considered a little bit more on the aggressive side. So if you need to fill in something quickly, this might be a good bet for you. This one likes full to part sun, medium to moist soil. So I think overall it's pretty adaptable to a lot of different situations. Gets 1 to 2 feet tall, and it's going to bloom earlier, May, June, and July. And this one will spread by rhizomes. It's hardy in zones 3 to 6, and this is native to the northeastern US. Kathy, you have some of this in your garden, right?
I do, and I love this. Again, I think it looks very fresh. Now, in my garden, I have it in a very difficult area, which is a shady area there's a shade birch tree overhead, and then some viburnums and witch hazel underneath, and then a big cedar tree there. So it's under a lot of trees and foliage in a very shady, excuse me, dry area from all of the trees. And so it in my yard, it really has taken this area of like maybe 8 foot by 4 foot and pretty much stayed put. I understand though it can be more robust than that, more pushy than that, if it's, in its ideal conditions. Now, I have it in probably part shade to shade, and so it's not being really terribly robust, but it's still blooming and it's still forming a beautiful carpet of green. But probably I moved it into more sun, it would be more spreading. And but I will say that I love the foliage of this because it really forms a dense mat of green, and even when it stops blooming, that foliage just stays very fresh looking the rest of the summer. So it's just very, very attractive the entire season.
And sometimes it's fun to try the same plant in two different locations in your garden. So try it in the shade, try it in the sun, and see where it does best. It's how you kind of get to know your plants and what they like. So it's a little
Great
fun
point.
experiment. Here you can
Great
see
point.
Our bonnet map, it's native to the northeastern U.S. and a good chunk of that almost touching Canada. So it'll be a good solution for a lot of people in the upper parts of the country.
We get people from Canada asking us about plants for there, and you can, so we'd like to try to include you too. So golden groundsel. Now this one I absolutely love. This really solved a very problematic weed-prone area that is right along my driveway in a shady, under a tree place along the hot driveway. I couldn't get anything to grow, always weeds, and just looked unsightly. And I put a mixture of this in with the wild ginger, and I have like evergreen, now I have like an evergreen carpet along there that in the spring gets these pretty yellow flowers, but it just, the last 2 winters, it stayed green all along that driveway all winter. It likes full sun to shade. I mean, you can't get more adaptable than that. Medium to moist soil. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall. What it really has is a very dense carpet of foliage at the bottom, and then it shoots up the yellow flowers. So the foliage part of it is probably 1 foot tall at best. And then the yellow flowers come up another foot and a half higher than that. And when they're done blooming, they just kind of disappear, and there's the little seed heads, and then it disappears. And then you just continue to have this lush carpet of green for the rest of the year, pretty much, and at least in my case. And it blooms in May and June. It is hardy in zones 3 to 9. It spreads by rhizomes and self-seeds, and it is native to the northeastern US. I just love this plant.
So bright and cheery.
It really is. And when you see that the carpet that it forms, and I interspersed it because it's in a shady area with wild ginger. Oh my God. I mean, it just, that was one of those exciting moments of a gardener of, oh my gosh, this worked great. This is this is just, oh my.
And it
So
solved a problem.
it solved a problem and it looks great. So can't speak highly enough.
Okay, another fern for our repertoire. This is sensitive fern, and actually most ferns really prefer shady conditions, but this one will do well in full sun to shade. So if you're looking for
That's
more of that,
interesting. I didn't know
isn't
that
that?
there, I wasn't aware that there were ferns that could do full sun. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so it does like medium to wet soil. It'll get about 2 feet tall. This one spreads by rhizomes and self-seeding. And the reason it's called sensitive fern is because when you touch it, it has a response. So, there are some ferns that will completely close up when you touch the fern. I don't think this one completely closes up. I haven't planted this one yet, but this one I think would be a great option for those who, maybe have an edge of their garden that gets both, sun and has some shade. Combination light situations might be really good for sensitive fern. This one is native to the central and eastern US, and we'll take a look at that on our little map. So a good almost half of the country, this fern is going to work for a multitude of different conditions.
Okay, zigzag goldenrod. Who said you can't have color in a shade garden? If you want flowers and pollinators and brighten up a very, dark, shady area of your yard, this is a great option. And of course, goldenrod, any species of goldenrod being a keystone plant, which means it's one of the plants that has the most beneficial ecosystem benefit of all plants. So goldenrods in general are just, wonderful for our environment. And this one, most of them like sun, but this one likes shade to part shade, and it grows in dry to medium soil, 1 to 3 feet tall, and blooms August and September, right when, those bees are trying to fatten up and get ready to overwinter, and or when our monarchs are heading south for the winter, and they're looking for nutrition to make their journey. This is blooming right at that time. It is hardy in zones 3 to 8, and it spreads by rhizomes and seeds, and native to the northeastern US. How pretty that would look under in a shady area under trees
Just
when
gorgeous. I just planted a bunch of this along with big leaf aster in a shady area, and I can't wait to see the combination of those
oh
white flowers and the yellow. It's going to be
how
pretty.
pretty. Okay, and here is its native range. As you can see, and I noticed there is some yellow spots on this map where it shows that it is now rare, where it once was native and found. It is now rare. Always sad to see that.
But if you live there, you can make a difference.
That's right.
All right, so another exotic, prehistoric looking kind of plant,
It
Solomon
really is.
seal. It's so cool looking. These little flowers that come off of it look kind of like slippers, little ballerina slippers. But this, if you can imagine this mass planted with some ferns in a shade garden, really, really a spectacular effect, especially for problematic areas under trees where you don't want to deal with weeds, but you want something really pretty. So shade to part shade, medium to moist soil. This gets 1 to 3 feet tall. It'll bloom in May and June, and it is hardy in zones 3 to 9, spreads by rhizomes, and it is native to the central and the eastern US.
You know, as we talk about these, I mean, we love making gardens that have a lot of color, but there really is something so beautiful and elegant and peaceful about a mass of one flower. You know what I mean? That is just as showy.
And all the textures from those different leaves, and it can be so interesting to have that. Once the flowers are gone, you still have a lot to look at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so native to the central and eastern US, there's our little map. There is some yellow there. So if you're in those areas, help support this plant and plant some in your garden.
Mist flower. This is another one I have in the area. So this is just a little bit down in that same uh, shady area in my garden, and I know it's full of part sun. And when I planted it, it's full of part sun, but it gets some sun at parts of the day. So maybe it's getting sort of part sun. It does wonderful for me, and it really has filled in like about along a fence and under trees and under a dry area. It's really um, it's really filled in an area maybe like 6 or 7 feet by 4, and in the late summer, July, August, before the fall flowering goldenrods and asters start doing their thing, all of a sudden, when everything is looking kind of tired, this thing just pops out and is smothered in these beautiful lavender blooms. It does prefer full to part sun, so I'm sure that it would be more robust and really spreading to cover more ground if it were in a sunnier place than I have it. And it does like medium to moist soil, so it is really suitable for many soil conditions, because I have it in a pretty dry place and it's doing beautiful, and then it'll take a very moist place. Gets 1 to 3 feet tall, and it does bloom a very long time. I will say it does. It really, once that thing starts going, all I know is there is just a mass of purple along that wall for months along that fence. It really is just a just a very showy, showy plant that you don't think too much of, and it's just like, it's just gorgeous. Zones 5 to 10, it's hardy in, and it spreads by rhizomes, and it is native to the central and southeastern US. Look at our little bonnet map there. And yeah, as you can see, interesting, it's you can see the native range up here in the Chicago area where we are. And then there's like a lull further south where it's found, but not necessarily native. And then really, as you go further south in the east, it really picks up more as being a native species there. So Just a great, great plant that I can't speak highly enough of. I don't hear too much about it. It's not one of the ones that you get a lot of, that you hear a lot about with native plants, but I can attest it's a trooper, a real trooper.
Here's another really important plant, evening primrose. I think it's also referred to as Missouri evening primrose, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're
Um,
right.
This one really likes full sun, so it's going to do the best and spread the best in those conditions. Dry to moist soil, gets about 1 foot tall. This blooms again for a really long period of time, July, August, September, October, and this yellow is just so vibrant and beautiful. It's hardy in zones 5 to 10, so again, lower in the country. It's going to spread by rhizomes, and it's native to the south central US. And Kathy, you were saying that this plant is super important to our native moths.
If I am not incorrect, I believe the reason it's called evening primrose is because it's closed during the day in the direct sun, and those flowers open later in the day, and they're open all night. And the bright yellow flowers really are attractive to moths. So this is a great, if you want to, help out those moths that are so key to our ecosystem. And this is a nice bright flower that will feed them in the night. So we got to remember our moths. They're doing a lot for us.
And moths have been in existence a lot longer than butterflies, which is super interesting, but they preceded the butterflies, and the butterflies get a lot of attention because of how showy they are. But the moths are the foundation for so much, for feeding our birds and keeping our ecosystems in balance.
Absolutely. And so many more species of moths. And really, if you're looking at the driver of the ecosystem and the driver of the food chain, um, it's those moths more so than the butterflies. You're
Super fascinating.
and in the Chicago area here, now this has got me, I need to go out and plant some more of this evening primrose, because we're like in a rare spot here. So this does not have a very big range, but it was once here and now is rare. So that just gets me going, oh, I got to get some of this now. So,
Absolutely, because you can make a difference, but just by planting a plant, it's incredible. Okay, so Mayapple. I just planted some of this under a tree, and I'm hoping it becomes just like this carpet. I've seen carpets like this in our forest preserves here in Illinois, and I'm hoping to create the same effect, kind of woodland effect. It does like shade to part shade. It'll have a really pretty white flower, and I believe a little fruit too in the springtime. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall and will bloom in May and June. This is hardy in zones 4 to 8. It spreads by rhizomes, and this is native to the central and eastern US. And when I look at these leaves, they just kind of look, again, like something tropical and exotic. And you don't expect to see them in our area, but this is a native plant. So it's a
when
beautiful
you see
plant.
them in person, they almost look like little umbrellas, right?
Yes, yes, exactly.
And these are a plant, if you have an area, if you have a lot of pine trees in your yard and you're looking to cover the ground under the pine trees to prevent weeds, it's very hard. A lot of plants don't do well under pines. I think it's because of the acidic soil and so forth. And this is a plant that is supposed to do very well under pine trees. So if you have a difficult pine area, mayapple might be the plant for you. There they look like little umbrellas, little prehistoric umbrellas.
Yeah, and look at that cute little flower popping out. It's just really elegant. And there's our map, native to the central and eastern US.
Marsh marigold. Earlier, Lexi and I were discussing how beautiful this is and how this is something we definitely would like to find a place for in our yards. It's like a big bright smile. And imagine that big bright smile in shade to part shade. So you have this dark shady area and pop, you have that beautiful bright yellow. It is good for medium to wet soil, and this is a plant that would be suitable for a rain garden. So if you have an area in your yard that does tend to hold water and is very wet, or along a pond, or you know, a water feature, this would be a very suitable plant for you. It gets to be 1 to 2 feet tall and it blooms in May and June. Hardy in zones 3 to 7. It will spread by rhizomes and it is native to the northeastern and northwestern US. That's interesting.
In that
So
picture,
yeah,
it looks like it's planted next to some blue flag iris, and that combination would just be stunning for
that
a
would be
really
stunning. You're
wet
right.
area.
And they would be blooming at the same time, right? That would be stunning.
Yeah.
So if you have a pond or a very wet area, wow.
Yeah, look at it here, just growing in water. It's happy.
Yeah,
We know a lot of people have yards that flood. So, to think about those plants that can help you with those situations, to help stabilize the soil, to help, prevent more erosion. That is really the purpose of a rain garden, and to deliver nutrients back to the soil and support all this wildlife. So you're getting the benefit of beauty and also, improving your soil and the ecosystem.
you're getting the beauty and the function. You're getting the beauty in your wet area, and you're helping to decrease the problem of a wet area with those wonderful native plant roots that are going to absorb so much of that water.
Right. Grass won't do that.
No, I guess
It'll
it
just
does it
become a,
probably does it better than cement, but just a little, right?
right, exactly. Okay, this is such a classic plant, wild geranium. This one is kind of like the Canada anemone that we looked at previously with similar shaped leaves. It'll have the same kind of spreading carpeted effect, and it does well in shade to part shade, dry to medium soil. It gets 1 to 2 feet tall, and it's going to bloom in May and June. This beautiful paper-like purple flower. It's just so beautiful, and you'll see all of those early emerging bees on the wild geranium flowers. It spreads by rhizomes. It's hardy in zones 3 to 8, and this is native to the eastern US. You'll find it in lots of woodlands. It's a classic woodland plant. And it is also the larval host plant for the white-marked tussock moth. And here's its caterpillar, which looks so alien-like, and then we've got this super interesting moth, and I think it's actually pretty small, this little guy, but again, just so amazing the life that these plants support.
This guy is kind of punky.
Very punky. Look at that red.
That orange head sticking out there with that wild dew. I wonder how much gel he has to use to keep up that hairdo, right?
Yeah, and all that coloring is to scare somebody from eating him, so pretty fascinating.
All right, so that was our 1 to 2 feet ground covers, and we will be back next week with our last presentation in this series of beautiful native ground covers to help out with your areas that are weed prone and to prevent weeds in your garden. And we will be back then for more that will be 2 to 3 feet tall. And in the meantime, thank you very much for joining us. And please subscribe to our channel if you are liking our content. And we will see you next